All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our coffee conversations here at Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center. I'm Janita, and we are here with Beth today, Beth Curry. We're going to talk about balancing life with stage 4 breast cancer. It's a very sensitive topic, but it's a very important one, and her story needs to be heard. So we are so glad that she has taken this opportunity to share with everybody about what it's been like for her and just things that she would love for others to know. So, Beth, tell us about how you're doing today.
I'm good today.
You're good
I
today.
slept a little late, but I'm good today.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're here. So tell us a little bit about your breast cancer story.
Okay.
I know you had a diagnosis before
Yeah.
getting your stage 4 diagnosis.
Yeah, so I was originally diagnosed stage 1 in 2013. It's called on a routine mammogram. I'm a huge proponent of routine mammograms. And it went, it wasn't fun, but it went pretty smoothly. I had a lumpectomy, then I had both radiation and chemo. And the reason for that is the histology, they just wanted to, the histology was kind of mean from the very beginning, even though it was stage 1. They did tell me that the histology revealed a type that was had a high recurrence. So I had at least heard that, even though I erased that from my memory.
Yeah. You're like, thanks for the info.
Yeah.
But
so I went through, that process, lost my hair, had a wig, didn't wear it, too hot. And really had gotten, was doing routine scans and things, and had almost gotten to the place that I didn't view myself as somebody who was at risk. I'd almost sort of gone, okay, that's a historical fact about me. But in 2017, I was playing golf. I had resumed normal life. I mean, really and truly.
Right.
I was on an estrogen inhibitor, so I had a lot of hot flashes, but but that was really it.
And then living in Alabama, you're bound to get hot.
But playing golf, I'm not a great golfer. I hit the ground and my shoulder just hurt like crazy, and didn't finish the round. And I thought it was just sort of a musculoskeletal orthopedic kind of a thing. Went to the doctor that I saw for stuff like that, and he was getting ready to inject it, and then said, "Oh, hang on, I don't want to inject this. Radiologist sees a little something that is troubling, and we don't want to murk it up by putting an injection in there." And thus began sort of the analysis. It was, an MRI and bone biopsy, and it became clear in that process that they were pretty worried. And we got referred back over to my oncologist, and I sort of kid with the sports medicine guy that it was sort of, I was just trying to spice up his life, Anyway, it became clear before they gave me the definitive diagnosis that it probably was metastasis. And it hit me with a grave, I know so many people with breast cancer. I really felt confident in the earlier diagnosis. And but boy, it was like, oh no, stage 4. This is not good, and kind of went into panic mode. I was working full time, and sort of went along the. We had a friend who got us in at what my previous care had been in another hospital. It's great care, but with metastasis. Friend got us in at UAB, and I started on a drug immediately, which was really, really helpful. I think the waiting game in cancer is, it can make your head go crazy. So that was in 2017. I've been on several different medications. I had great results for with the first drug for more than a year. I think, I don't remember the details, but I've been on a couple of different regimens. I'm still on an oral chemo thus far I've been able to stay off of IV chemo, which has been I think I can only imagine going back to my first diagnosis, but I do think that is probably a very different feel because I can go and do to whatever degree I'm able without having to schedule it around a chemo appointment. And so that's where I am today. Yeah.
So, like, was there a history of breast cancer in your family?
So that's a funny story. I had always said no. And I don't know if it was denial or we just didn't talk about it, or I don't know. But I had on those forms, I'd always said no. After my first diagnosis, I did some genetic testing and I was having to fill out all those forms. And so I had to reach out to all sorts of family members. And in fact, my maternal grandmother, a maternal aunt, a maternal side cousin. I mean, there was quite a bit of breast cancer.
So obviously you ran in the family.
Yeah. So I sent that family tree to all the females in my family saying, okay, know that this is something that our family needs to be aware of. And my nieces and my daughter.
And that's something we've been talking about a lot too. People don't talk about all the illnesses that they have going on, but it's like then when it gets to you, you're like, does this run in the family? Like, is this something that I could have known about a little bit sooner and prepared for? So I'm hopeful, like, as people are learning more about how important it is to share medical history throughout the family, like what things that we can help catch earlier, you know, to help be a little bit more preventative.
Yeah, it was almost humorous because I have a healthcare background, and the fact that I kept checking no was like,
like I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah,
nobody said anything. So I know you said, you know, when you were diagnosed, that's a lot, you know, hearing that you have breast cancer, and then you've already been through this before, but then to find out that it was metastatic. How did you kind of cope with that initially?
So I'm a fairly driven person, and I think it was very much in my head. Very much, I mean, you know, I would fall apart and get scared, but I kind of did that in privacy of my family, and just sort of forged through. And I was working full time at a pretty demanding job. Continued working, would just, you know, take off to go to doctor appointments and things. And the side effect of the first medicine I was on was, and each of the medicines, quite frankly, was fatigue. And I would work all day and have an afternoon kind of droop, but just sort of go on, but then basically go home and go to bed. And I finally, after about a year, I realized that wasn't really very high quality life. I was, you know, when I resigned, my boss it was sort of a compliment and sort of a reminder to me. He said, we didn't know you were struggling. And that was good because I was doing a good job at work. But on the other hand, it was like, okay, I'm giving work everything.
And not giving enough to me.
Or my family, or So that sort of then changed, and that time period, I will say, was I don't remember all the detail, but I think for the purpose of this, it doesn't really matter. There was my daughter was pregnant, and I had all sorts of emotional come apart of whether I was going to be able to be a part of that child's life, and you know, just tear fests. And retiring, really, I had to get my hands around it because it felt like failing, felt like giving up, letting cancer win. And I had to really reframe that.
Because a sense of control in everything in your life, you know, like now you have a diagnosis that changes so many different things. You're like, at least I can control it. I'm going to work every day.
Well, and I also had to control the message, which was very interesting. It was like our board of directors and people I worked with and friends. It was sort of like, oh, okay, Beth's dying, and it was like, no, Beth's trying to reshape life because I can and I need to. But controlling the message to say this is a choice that I need to make was it was a little hard. You know, like I'd go, no, you can.
I mean, telling people like this is what this means for me. Unfortunately, when people hear about a stage 4 diagnosis, they think the worst of the worst. They think you're going to die tomorrow. They think that anytime that you don't feel well or all that you want to talk about is cancer. Exactly. Like, oh, we've got to get ready. We've got to start our mourning process and all of these different things. And it's not always the case. Now, everybody's is different. You know, but ideally, you know, the day that you get that diagnosis, that's not.
Well, it was interesting. I had that camp, but I also had the camp that was like, you know, you beat it the first time, let's beat it again. And it's like, sort of, it was okay. I didn't, but you had to educate people. It's like, no, this is a forever thing. I will always be medicated. You know, it's like, you know, have you finished your treatment? It's like, unfortunately, my treatment's never going to
end. Like, I'm not going to be on that other side. I'm not ever going to
ring the bell.
I'm not ringing the bell. I'm not going to say, you know, that I'm out of active treatment and, you know, I'm in whatever remission. It's just not reality. And getting people to understand the difference between having a breast cancer diagnosis and a stage 4 breast cancer diagnosis. Like, life looks different, and there is a need for that to be recognized and respected too, but also like not giving into all of the stigma of what a stage 4 diagnosis is, because you're still human, you still have a life to live. You can still do these social things, maybe not with the same energy or as frequently, but like you said, educating people, that can even be exhausting.
Well, it's a little tiring. So you sort of, but on the other hand, if you just, it's okay because the people who care about you the most want to understand, and but it is a little tiring.
It can be tiring, and
I didn't understand. And my first reaction was I need to get my affairs in order, and it was, and I think that is important.
It is important. It is important. You should always be prepared to do that, right? You know, every time I go to the doctor now, they're like, do you have a living will? And I'm like, what? Like, they always ask that. It's important to have your affairs in order. But, you know, it's even harder when people hear that you have a stage 4 breast cancer diagnosis. They're like, you know, it's putting that diagnosis with it that makes it even more scary for folks.
Live with a label.
You know, and getting people to understand too, like, I have this diagnosis, but this diagnosis is not me. You know, I'm still who I am. I'm changing. Yes, I have to make adjustments, but I am not the stage 4 breast cancer patient. That's not my name. Have there been any like other social adjustments that you've had to make since being diagnosed with the stage 4 diagnosis? Like, what kind of changes have you had to just really wrap your head around outside of, you know, retiring and things? Like, it affects everything in ways. So what are some adjustments that you made?
Well, a very early one was that whole, you know, assuring people I do still want to go to lunch.
I'm still hungry. I still like food.
But financially, I retired before my original plans had been, and I was fortunate in terms of being able to sort of assess the situation and recalibrate some things to be able to pay for health insurance, which was like, I had COBRA for a period, but I was anticipating this, you know, how many years would I be having to pay for it? And yikes, that's a big number. I had a very interesting thing occur. I have a brother who is a friend who is a retired Social Security disability judge, and he was at our home, and he said, "You qualify for disability. Why don't you apply?" And I well, I had a couple of reactions from the standpoint of thinking about qualifying for disability and knowing ultimately that meant I could get a Medicare, and it was exciting. But on the other hand, I'm a retired physical therapist, and I have worked in the world of disability for a long time, and I to embrace that label was it created a whole nother set of emotions for me, and didn't somebody else deserve that more than me? I wasn't disabled. I just couldn't get through the day.
Yeah, like I'm tired. Like I don't want to. Anyway, and especially after you're already making the adjustment from retiring.
Exactly, and sort of your sense of self and those sorts of things. I'm somebody who always I need to be in service in some way, and trying to figure out, particularly with COVID, trying to figure out ways to be helpful to others that didn't drain me and didn't risk me. But I mean, during COVID, I remember asking the oncologist, I'd been involved with a tutoring program, and like, can I be around a bunch of second graders? And she said, no.
Oh, yeah.
That would not be smart. They're not vaccinated. So finding a balance of fun, rest, spiritual growth, friendship, and I mean, it was sort of having to just constantly recalibrate, I guess, and also give myself permission to say, that's not something I want to do.
Yeah.
I was raised in the South, and we're always supposed to be gracious, and that I do believe that's important, but to say no, that's not.
Yeah,
I have you sort of live with this new sense of limited time, which can get in your brain and make you depressed, or can make you go, I need to treat every day as special. And my mother had COPD, and I can remember her saying, I have to have something to look forward to every day. She said it might be as simple as a phone call, but philosophically, I need to always have something to look forward to.
What meaning am I going to find in every day now? Exactly. And if I feel like it's not going to serve meaning to me, I'm okay with not wanting to do that.
Exactly.
And being okay with that. Like, and being in the South, you just want to make everybody happy. You don't want to disappoint them.
I'm a pleaser.
You want to be like, oh, well, they invited me though, and they didn't have to do that. So even though I'm tired, I'm gonna go. Like changing your perspective to be like, that's not what's best for me. I'm okay with that.
Well, it's funny now, several years later, I guess I'm approaching 5 years. Now all my friends know, don't call Beth in the afternoon unless you really need to, because she's probably napping.
Yeah. I mean, and that's important for them to know, and unfortunately people, co-survivors, especially people who might be friends or distance, they kind of struggle with how to support somebody through a breast cancer diagnosis in general, but especially a stage 4. What are some things that have kind of helped your family, your loved ones kind of go through this journey with you and best support you? What are some things that you've done?
So, that actually touches on something that I think is important for us to all, without being rude, embrace. There are certain people that it is more enjoyable to be around than others. I don't want to talk about cancer all the time, but I also don't want my altered needs to be disregarded. So it's like that, finding that balance. But so I do think giving you, again, there's a lot of permission giving, a lot of grace, but giving yourself permission to go, ooh, Mary's kind of tough to be around. I don't have the energy for that.
Yeah, well, that's a once a year kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but the question you asked is, what are some of the things that were helpful? One is being flexible, knowing that there is a chance. I'm not going to bail at the last second unless I absolutely have to. But just being aware that that I might need to alter something. I might say we'll be there at 3, and I have to call and say, God, it'll be 4.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of going with the flow a little bit. For me, it also means taking my lead on whether I really want to talk about it or I want to sort of be normal.
Mm-hmm.
For me, so there's been a book that was very important to me called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. And it just really speaks to me because it goes through some of the things people say that are really not how I think, and they're not helpful,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's like, well, God has a reason for everything. And when someone dies, they've gone to a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And, those are all
unhelpful.
Absolutely unhelpful. Stay away from.
Yeah.
It's like well-meaning, because I think people don't know what
they have. They have good intention, but they don't have the right
Yeah.
wording. How to listen and communicate in those settings.
Yeah. So the things that have been important to me are the people who say, "I love you. What do you need?"
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten to be involved with this grandchild who's now 2.5, and my kids are they're in their 30s, and they're aware that I don't always have the energy for everything, but let's alter things to enjoy. But I'm still the exact same person I was.
Yeah.
Maybe a better person.
Yeah.
Maybe from a standpoint of
giving yourself grace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But also appreciating that everybody has a story. And everybody's story is different. And got a bumper sticker that says "Be kind" for, everyone's going through something. And,
everybody.
And I think for us our world doesn't invite us to slow down and appreciate the small things. But I think to buck that and do it is really important.
And allow it to mean what it means. And then feeling what you feel too. Oftentimes we'll think about the next thing that we can resolve in our lives, that we're not appreciating where we are and feeling what we're feeling.
Yeah. I also think that there's an important message that I think I've discovered. We do still want to please the people we love. But I think in just talking with other people, fortunately, my spouse is my number one teammate. But I've talked to a number of people who, that co-survivor is dealing with their own story. And, sometimes I think that means denial, or, I'm just going to get back to my normal life. And that's a coping mechanism. And I think finding, like, I do have a person that I sometimes, when I'm struggling with how I feel about something, I'm a verbal processor. And I sometimes want to have done it somewhere before my spouse and I deal with it. Ultimately, we do.
Yeah.
But I, whether that's counseling or it's a friend, that doesn't mean you're disrespecting.
You're just processing.
You're just, and I think figuring out what is helpful for you, rather than trying to, make everything okay for the kids or make everything okay for the spouse or the whomever.
Yeah.
I do think that remains an important thing. You don't want to just all of a sudden become this selfish being.
It's a balance,
but it is a balance.
Yeah. And then recognizing that your needs are changing and their needs along with yours will change too, because they're making this adjustment with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even though, like you were mentioning, people have things that they think they're saying that'll help you, and it's not. And then it's okay to communicate to them that, can you please stop saying that?
Exactly.
That is literally so unhelpful. You cannot tell me God's will is for me to have stage 4 cancer.
Exactly. That's not the God I worship.
Yeah, I don't want you to tell me that, and everybody's belief system is different and they process it different. But as long as you're communicating to them that's unhelpful to me, the difference that will make. And it'll make them start thinking about, okay, well, then I need to kind of check what it is that I'm saying first before saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Well, what other things that would you like to leave viewers with? Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more people get diagnosed with stage 4. A lot of them are even younger. You know, it's very scary. What are some things, and I know you say you're coming up on 5 years. What are some things you would love for people to know who are starting to face this diagnosis?
Well, that there's hope. I mean, it's, you know, I have a pretty happy life. There's people out there to be supportive who are you know, have made adjustments but are living and thriving. That doesn't mean everybody. I mean, there's also people dying every day. And so I think to surround yourself with people who help you on the journey. I think that's one really important message. Another is that whole piece of just appreciating everything. But I also don't want to sound Pollyanna, because I know I have a great spouse. I have a very important spiritual community, religious community. I have family who loves me. I have the finances to have, you know, when they go through their barrage of questions, you know, are you having difficulty paying for your medicines? At this point, the answer to that's no. You know, so I have that bottom rung of Maslow's hierarchy. I have it met, you know, and I don't ever want to blow off on. You can't appreciate the flowers if you are wondering how you're going to pay the rent.
Exactly.
You know, and I get that. So I think tending to those and knowing that there's resources out there, I think that's you know, I'm fortunate I haven't had to go there, but I do think that's another important message. It's not part of my story, but you know, a counselor I saw in one of my dips of panic of I'm not going to meet my grandchild, and told me something that really has helped me, and it was sort of find a way to slow your brain down, and rather than thinking about a year from now or 5 years from now, think about life in seasons, and whether that's, you know, winter, spring, summer, fall, or it's just the next 3 months, whatever chunk of time you can sort of bite off. I tend to, I get scans every 3 months. And so I tend to sort of live in the 3-month scan world that is sort of, we call it scanxiety, a couple of weeks prior to the scans. But it's, make some plans, but don't have them, remember, keep dreams, but make definitive plans that are a little tighter in, and do things, you know, fill it with things you are joyful. And dream about what's out there, but as quickly as dreaming, you can go to, well, I may be dead. And that's not really that's not really good for me to go to sleep on.
Don't do that. But so, it goes back to appreciating those things that you can't control.
But it was really helpful when she said to me, think about life in seasons, whatever that chunk of time you can kind of confidently manage. And that has just been very, very meaningful.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think anybody can use that too.
Sure.
You know, like in life, we'll think about a problem that we have. And, you know, when this problem comes to fruition, like, what am I going to do? And yada, yada, yada. And you're worried about something that hasn't even happened yet, that you're not appreciating where you are now, and you're missing the things that you should be holding on to. Thank you so much, Beth. We love having you here at the Forge House, and I know this conversation is going to help somebody.
I hope so.
You know, whether it's the survivor or the co-survivor. So thank you.
Okay.